I'm Tom Duane, and I am here to recruit you, and this is The Recruiters. Welcome to The Recruiters. I'm Tom Duane, and I am a former New York State Senator. Which, it's something. Anyway, these are trying times, and we are all living through these trying times together. And we repeat that so much. It feels like a cliche, but it's true. Our communities are under attack. And it's easy to get stuck in fear. Yet, as intimidating as our opponents seem, I'm continually inspired and deeply moved by all the ways folks are finding to resist. We're not complying. We're doing stuff in advance of before they try to make us comply. And we're protesting, and we're organizing, and we're powered by a kind of righteous anger and defiant joy, because there has to be joy too. Anger, lots of anger, deserved anger, but also some joy. So our resistance is older, it's more experienced, and it's more powerful than the forces attacking us. And, through the recruiters and through the resistors, and that's what we're doing here today, we're going to learn about how to do resistance and how to recruit other people, because now you're already recruited. On the recruiters, we just know once you watch this show, you're a recruiter, and you're going to stick around and think of other ways, along with the rest of us, on how to recruit other people to fight back against the bad stuff that's going on, because we're going to win.
I'm Charles Sanchez, and it's time to rally. Y'all, the mood of the country is gloomy, like super gloomy, like yo heave ho. You can gauge by the fashion. Last month, I was slumming for some cheap fashions in H&M Times Square, and those clothes are the saddest thing you ever saw. The whole color scheme for modern 2025, according to H&M, is black, gray, brown, and gray-brown. It looks like the costume shop for the Bus and Truck of Fiddler on the Roof. Then last week, I was walking past the glamorous shops on the avenue, Fifth Avenue, and it looks like the well-to-do are in the same mode. Browns and blacks, and the saddest name for a color, beige. For the look that says, don't look at me, don't notice me. I saw one shop that had evening wear with sequins, but even they were sad. Sad black sequins, sad champagne sequins. And the color champagne, it's really just sparkly beige. But I'm understanding that feeling of not wanting to be seen. As a person of brown persuasion with a Z at the end of my last name, I'm feeling kind of vulnerable just walking around. I always thought it was a good thing in New York to be generically ethnic. In New York, I'm often claimed by different ethnic groups. I've been mistaken for Italian, Middle Eastern, Jewish, Greek, even every once in a while, Mexican. The more the merrier. But lately, similar to right after 9/11, anyone brown is seen as an enemy, a terrorist. And somehow, Tangerine Satan has convinced people that immigrants, specifically Mexican immigrants, are evil, dangerous, draining American resources, bringing drugs into the US, bringing violence. Well, let me tell you about the Latinos I know. My family, my friends, my community. We are the hardest working motherfuckers. And we can do anything. You want to know how I know? You can find Latinos in the restaurant kitchen of any kind of food, and that food is delicious. Italian, Chinese, Thai, Latinos can cook it all. Now, the opposite is not always true. You only need to try a sweet and sour burrito once, let me tell you. Latinos are the kindest people. Americans with a special bigotry award going to Texas have been bad-mouthing our friends in Mexico with aplomb since the tangerine turd took over. Yet when floods overtook parts of central Texas over the 4th of July weekend this past summer, some of the first responders were Mexicans from Mexico. Fundación 911, a nonprofit that provides training equipment for fire departments across Mexico, sent a crew of 40 firefighters. And they weren't asked. They just showed up within 12 hours of the calamity. Latinos are the most loving. If you're in need, find a Latino. We will not let you go hungry. We will find you a place to sleep. We will do what we can to help. We will pray for you and possibly help you with a Santeria spell to ease your way. And another thing, we belong here. I'm a United States citizen, an American, born in Arizona, 5th generation. I am part of we the people. My heritage is George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. It's also Harvey Milk, Marsha P. Johnson, Pete Buttigieg, and Freddie Fender, Trini Lopez, Ricky Martin, Miami Sound Machine, and Selena. So yeah, America is in a funk. The rich are dressed for a funeral, the poor are shopping at one, and everybody's acting like beige is a personality. But here's the thing. You can't bleach out the color of this country. You can't deport flavor. You can't ban rhythm. This nation does not run on Dunkin'. It runs on tacos, tamales, and tenacity, baby. So while the haters are busy wringing their hands and matching their depression to their wardrobe, the rest of us are out here seasoning democracy with cilantro and joy. So, stay salty, my friends. Stay loud, stay proud, and for Christ's sakes, wear something brighter than beige.
Deep into her 4th career, Victoria Noe, who is a Chicago-based award-winning author, speaker, a good speaker, activist, 2 degrees in theater, and her grief series was the result of a promise made to a dying friend. And it recognizes the importance of friendships in shaping our lives and illuminates an often disrespected form of grief. Noe's long-time HIV/AIDS activism then led her to write Fag Hags, Divas and Moms, The Legacy of Straight Women in the AIDS Community. It was a groundbreaking book. I mean, just the title in and of itself, like it was out there. And it honors women who changed the course of the epidemic. And her 2023 book, What Our Friends Left Behind, Grief and Laughter in a Pandemic, shares the challenges faced by people who grieved a friend. During COVID, with Unstoppable, Straight Women on the AIDS front lines, Noe shares more stories of straight women in the HIV/AIDS community, and now they're responding to the shock and awe of 2025. Welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. I want to talk about Chicago, but I have another question that I want. So, you know, there's 4 phases of grief thing, right? I'm sure, you know, but it never ends. It just changes. It gets different. It makes it seem like you should be, well, I'm done with it now. No, it's not like that, right?
Right. You know, like I said, I made this promise to a friend when she was dying that I would write a book about people grieving their friends, and I had never written a book before, so that was a little hasty. But I wound up writing this series of 6 little books about just stories of people grieving their friends and the challenges they had. And then again, during COVID, to write that book, because everyone talked about family loss, but friends could not visit.
Oh, yes, terrible.
They could not go to hospitals, they could not go to funeral homes, they could not go to funerals.
I even had a very, very good friend, one of my very best friends, and she was in various parts of my life. She died of a heart attack in the beginning of the epidemic. She was not close to her family. Her husband, they were just, you know, forever together, had passed away a few years before. She was close to his family, but she basically disappeared. No memorial, no nothing. And it was, my experience was not uncommon. It
That's
just
right.
happened in many, many different ways. They could have been a hospital setting. There were people that didn't go to the hospital and were told, oh, well, don't go to the hospital. You'll be, I mean, terrible, terrible.
One of my best friends died at the beginning of 2022 from melanoma. And in St. Louis, 300 miles away from me, where I grew up. And my husband kept saying, don't you want to go visit her? I'm like, I can't visit her. They will not let me visit her because I'm not family. And then I wound up giving the eulogy at her funeral. You know, that was all I could do. So it was a very unique time.
Well, we could go all the way back to the AIDS epidemic,
Yeah.
and families had been created, but they weren't legally
Right.
documented. And so to be able to see people was a challenge, except for in the beginning, and really for too long, the hospital personnel didn't want to take care of the people, so they were happy to have the friends come and take
Yes.
care of people. That was the irony. And, we would go in without moon suits on. They were wearing moon suits. It was,
Well, and as you know, the beginning of COVID was so triggering
yes.
for those of us who went through the early
Yes.
days of the AIDS epidemic. There was a point in the summer of 2020 when I started thinking, oh, we're up to 1987 now. And it just, it was the same thing, but it was compressed.
But the other thing was, I never wouldn't walk close to someone who I knew had HIV. But with this, you were told, get off the sidewalk, walk on the other side of the street if someone's coming in your direction. I hated that.
I did
hated
too.
that. It, Chicago.
Yes.
You come here from Chicago.
Yes.
What the hell is going on in Chicago?
It's a nightmare. I mean, there's the feeling that you're under siege. Everything that's happening is so unpredictable. And we're learning things along the way, like if you see drones at night, that means they're doing recon for the following day. And you should expect ICE to show up there the next day.
Wow. And that's spread out, so then there's an alert that goes out.
It's spread out. It's in the city, all over the city. It's in the suburbs. I've had 2 meetings in the last couple weeks at TPAN, Test Positive Aware Network, because I'm doing a book event for them around World AIDS Day. And both times I went to their office on the north side of Chicago, ICE had been in the neighborhood an hour before. Not at their office, but they were sort of on lockdown because they were driving around, mostly trolling the elementary schools at pickup time in the afternoon.
Terrifying.
Which was absolutely terrifying for these kids and their parents.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing that's a lot of it feels like it's for sport. That they just enjoy doing this.
Yes.
And there are
Frightening
times,
people, making
and there
them
are times
miserable.
when they don't even stop to grab anybody. They just want you to know they're there.
They want to intimidate.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there is a model for that. These, to
Yes.
me, they're brown shirts. They're just wearing a different
Yeah.
outfit, and but they really are.
Mhm.
And military people just wandering around neighborhoods with their guns,
Yeah.
right? Scary. And people who've been hurt in demonstrations, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those brave people.
The demonstrations.
When a demonstration is happening, the way they try to stop it, what happens to the people who are demonstrating? Because
Well-
that's not covered. They just show the people marching, and then they, but they don't say what the bad things that can potentially happen by just being involved in a peaceful demonstration.
Well, I mean, one of the things that has grown up organically in Chicago is the whistles, and I have my little red whistle on a lanyard, and they're being given away for free at bookstores, at cafes, even some of the aldermanic offices have them. Not my alderman, but 3 short blasts means ICE is on the way. 3 long blasts means they're grabbing someone.
Ugh.
Now everybody is told, don't do this alone. Do this in groups. And when there's ICE activity, people just pour out of their houses. And they've got whistles and they're yelling. And ICE now considers that to be assault.
Right. Right.
You know, and you're
Yelling,
at risk of being
First Amendment
pepper
traits.
sprayed or tear gassed or grabbed yourself. And it's so, you're like constantly on edge because they're not driving around with sirens and lights
Right.
flashing. These are unmarked
And
cars.
doors could open up any time, and people and these guys. But there's some women too, but it's mostly men.
I mean, who pays attention to black SUVs? You know, they're everywhere, and they are. I mean, they drive around quickly and they ram the car they're coming after. They sideswipe it.
Horrible. You know, if you know, yelling at someone is a crime, well, I have been called many an epithet in my life, and no one was charged with a crime. Who knew? Who knew? Not that I would want to, but you know, it's beyond un-American. And so you're telling me this. You have to deal with the mainstream media. You've written a lot. You go on shows.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are owned by capitalist, you know, broadcasters. What happens when you talk? Do you feel like screaming at them and saying, "What the f are you
Well,
doing?" You know.
I actually try not to go on mainstream.
But
I'm doing a radio interview when I get back to Chicago that's with a progressive radio station. You know, I try to really,
I mean, it can't be Amy Goodwin all the time, though. You know what I mean?
but I also know that,
I'm sorry, but they're
you know,
also being defunded. Like, if you see,
oh, absolutely. You know, you can't separate what's going on there from what else you're doing there because it affects everything. The food bank in my neighborhood is delivering more groceries to people who are afraid to come out.
tell me about. I'm just going to say the word. It's the word is a fallacy. Undocumented people living with HIV and AIDS today. Your experience of experiencing it along with people that are in that situation. Anyone who sets foot in this country, you're documented. They
Yeah.
know you're here. There's no such thing as undocumented.
Yeah.
But anyway, but just because people, for a time, there has to be a more politically correct term coming up. I just don't know it. But
Sure.
anyway, you must know many people.
And I'm sure I do, but I've never asked. You know, I've never, not just now, but I've just never asked. It's like it's not important to me. It's not
Is it
relevant to our
do-
relationship,
Do they
whatever it
offer
is.
the information to you?
Hmm?
Do they offer the information to you?
I can't remember anyone who did.
Because, it's all being, because the federal government is combining everything they know about with immigration and taxation and,
Yeah.
Social Security.
But I try to conduct myself in a way that they would not be afraid to tell me.
Yes, but but you would never, ever do anything ever to hurt any of those people. But I guess if they don't know you, that, they have,
Well, I hope that they know that I'm here to support them any way I can.
yes. Yes.
And if
Of course-
that means I'm going to drive to deliver groceries, or I'm going to, whatever.
Of course,
you know.
they're picking up people that have more steps towards citizenship anyway, so
Sure.
there's really no protection.
I'm the family genealogist, so I know how and when people in my family came here. And a few became citizens, most of them did not. But the laws were very different then. Like, there weren't any.
Right.
If you came here, you were here, and that
Right.
was all that mattered.
I'm going to do this. Tell me about this book.
Well, the Fag Hags book.
Please.
The Fag Hags book came out 6.5 years ago. And last year I decided, well, it's time to update it. Update some of the stories, add some more women, a second edition kind of thing. And so I started interviewing women, and then The election was approaching. And before the election, the women I interviewed were worried, but they weren't freaked out because they thought everything would be okay somehow. So then after the election, they were scared. And by the time the inauguration happened, they were in a rage. And it took me until March to figure out how to write a book that the rage was not at 11 for the whole book, because that was exhausting. It was exhausting to write,
So
much less read.
some people are fear, some people are anger, right? I'm an anger, I'm not a fear. But these women moved not seamlessly to anger, but that's quite an evolution, yes?
Mm.
What happens, what desperation precipitates it, but what do you think the thought process is? Because you must be, women must be telling you how they get there.
What I found so interesting, and I had to go back and re-interview some of the women after the inauguration, was that part of the anger was about, why are we having the same conversations that we had 35 years ago? Why do we have to relitigate this? Why do we have to start from the beginning again? Because 40 years ago we had nothing and built something from that.
Yes.
This time we had something and it was taken away.
Yes.
And that's a very different reaction. And that's why these women were so angry. It's like, we had this,
Yes.
We had this, we built this.
Having rights and privileges taken away is horrible.
And seeing their life's work completely erased.
Although I always would tell people, if they were, especially if it was an organization that thought it could go out of business, no, preserve the franchise, because it could go away as quickly, faster than it did to be able to achieve what we achieved, and that's happening.
Well, and I think that, and I said before, we did this, like, the only good thing that came out this year about HIV was that more people in the general public know what PEPFAR was. It's gone now, but they know what it was.
Yes.
And, I spent years, like, explaining what it was to people who had never heard of it. And now they have some sense of what was lost with that.
I wasn't planning on asking you about this, but I'm going to ask you about this. You equals you. I was a person who was guilty of when someone said, well, but, and I would just let it slide. Instead of saying, no, 100%, you cannot transmit it if you are undetectable. I wouldn't
Sure.
But now I am like, no, you're not getting away with this. It's 100%. You are not going to kill someone if your sperm enters someone else's body.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to reduce the stigma a eensy-weensy little bit for all those people who think there is no stigma. It's alive and well and has always been raging. Yes, my experience.
I mean, we got to a point where there were Victoria commercials on the Hallmark Channel.
Yes.
It's like, who would have ever imagined that?
I know, but
and I have friends outside the community like, oh, we know all about that.
Insurance companies, lousy with money. Pharmaceutical companies, exponentially more money. What are they not doing that they should be doing with all that money?
Well, there one woman who's her own chapter in the book, Martina Clark, she was the first openly HIV positive person who worked for UN AIDS. And she had a great career with them. Her work is gone. And now she's facing, can I afford my meds? They're $4,700 a month without insurance. Will I be able to keep taking my meds? That's a little bit of it. It's extreme in the case of what her work was.
Yes.
And what her personal life is. But it points to that, why do we still have to litigate this? Why do we still have to fight this?
Right.
And the fights are not just starting over from the beginning, but it's like past the beginning.
Yes.
You know, you've
Yes.
got AIDS denialists. You've got them in the cabinet. in the
They're
president's
running the
cabinet.
NIH and the CDC.
Bobby Jr., you know. It's like, I swear I had not heard the word poppers for years until he came back. And I was like, I was just stunned.
I wonder if poppers has had, what's its long-term impact? Long-term use, what's its long-term impact? Now, you know, I'm someone that doesn't use drugs or alcohol for quite a while, but early on, I was with a group of people, and just one person, I said, you know, I don't think of poppers as a drug. I think of it as more or less a lubricant. I thought that was the funniest thing. I thought that was great. Not even on the dance floor. Just it was a bedroom, you know, aid. It was a marital aid, so to speak.
But, you know, AIDS denialism is something that, I mean, I thought went away a long time ago.
I
But
know.
with,
I know.
you know, with the anti-vax movement during COVID, they
HIV
really brought
is
it
not
back.
the cause.
They really brought them back.
I know what you're doing, and it's not just writing books. I know that you speak out, you go places, you speak, you write. I don't know if I've ever heard you raise your voice. Do you ever yell?
Sure.
Good.
Maybe not often enough, but I do.
Well, you know, save it. It's special, so
Yes,
for
you
special
have to
occasions.
find your moment.
Right. Now, but I need to ask you, what should people be doing? This is the recruiters. You're already in the army. You know, you're like a lieutenant, or you know, you're on your way to being a general, but you're a woman, so of course they would knock you back out again. But anyway, not our group, but you know, the real military. So, but what do you think people should do? Someone's sitting on the couch. Oh my God, there's nothing I can do. I'm so depressed. What do you say to them?
What I say to people is somewhat based on a question that I asked during the U.S. Conference on AIDS last month. And I was at a workshop for long-term survivors, and I raised my hand and I said, you know, I've been in and out of the community since the early days, and I'm an ally. I'm not living with HIV. What do you need from me? And I'd never asked that question before.
Yes.
And I do things that I hope are helpful and effective, but I realized I never asked if they were.
Right.
So I'm asking that question more myself. For other people, there's always something you can do. You just need to find out what it is. You know, you don't have to march in the streets.
Although, I always say, if you're single, you might meet someone. If you're a couple, you can have dinner afterwards together and, you know, have a romantic post-demonstration date.
Well, and they're important, and I'm not discounting them at all, but there are all kinds of ways to be an activist.
Yes.
I felt for a long time that being an ally in the community was a detriment. That because I was not living with HIV, I was not important in the community, I guess. And I found that over the years that I was a bridge.
Yes.
And so that people outside the community, because I'm vocal about what I do, people outside the community come to me with questions, and I can point them in the right direction.
I have a past. We could do numerous shows on my past, but we're not doing that. So I was pretty sure that I had HIV. I had, you know, herpes and other hepatitis, etc. So, you know, I was a get-around guy. So I got tested. I found out one of the very first people that I told was one of my best friends, and she's very active and ACT UP. And I said to her, you know, because I was already, you know, fighting, but I did say to her, but if my people have this, you know, I really want to be with them. I wouldn't have gone out to get it, you know, to be infected, but there was some camaraderie in it. Now, but I'm sitting across someone who has like dedicated her life to she was a board member of the Treatment Action Group, like to find a cure, pure science. She was working harder than I was on HIV/AIDS issues, and I found, and women absolutely were working, I think, way harder than men might have worked if it was women. And that is actually what's going on now, because I don't know whether, I don't mean to presume, your reproductive situation, but what part of a man's body is controlled by the law?
Right.
I mean, this is a right that was taken away from. What are men doing about that? Not enough.
No, it's a very one-sided argument.
I want to wear a button that says almost every woman I know has had an abortion. I wish every woman would say I've had an abortion, whether they did or they didn't. I mean, I know I can't ask people to do that, and so I'm off the how do you have a greeting card, a Happy World AIDS Day greeting card from Hallmark, because we're not appropriate yet. Although that is when I was always asked to go, how many speaking engagements do you have on World AIDS Day? That's like a big day for me, I'm invited everywhere. I'm like, but every day is World AIDS Day. I'm going to tell you one other thing. I'm going to get into trouble for this. There's an AIDS memorial in the village, and I'm like, it's not over. You have memorials when it's done. It's not over. It's still going on.
That's why the Chicago AIDS location is not called a memorial. We deliberately did not call it a memorial. It's a garden on the lakefront with a Keith Haring sculpture, but it is deliberately not called a memorial.
We had already, I was part of this, had a bench in our Waterside Park, which we have on the west side of Manhattan.
Yes.
It was not a memorial.
that
it was
one.
just a bench where you could go and contemplate memorial. So I'm sorry, all these young people that they raised all this money to do all this stuff, and they didn't know any of the history even. It was very frustrating for me. I'm sorry. I mean, I know you were trying to do your best. I know, but could we revisit the memorial word, because it's just it's not, and it's worse now because people are being threatened with losing everything. There'll be waiting lists for ADAP if these cuts go through in our country. Meanwhile, in the rest of the world, we are actually killing people. So, what are we memorializing? We should be memorializing that it's not over.
I've had a number of encounters over the years with people, strangers, who have come to me. One guy said, "Whatever happened to AIDS? You never hear about it anymore." This was in a small town in Illinois. What he didn't know was there were two people who came up to my table. It was a library fair before him. One was a nurse, a home care nurse. All of her patients are HIV positive in that rural community.
Yes.
And the other was a man who was absolutely distraught because his best friend stopped taking his meds and died. And wanted to talk about it. And then there's this third guy who says, you never hear about it anymore. And they're all in the same community. So the word was not getting out.
No, I've been frustrated. I would say, like, I'm king of the gays, but I wasn't king of the HIV/AIDS because it wasn't, I serve on a state committee that it meets, but it only tries to keep funding it, present levels.
Yeah.
We were not really making policy or anything anymore. The fight has been diminished. Now, thanks to you and other people, it's going to get into the mix of all the horrible things. It's just it's one important horrible thing among many horrible things that are happening. I mean, I kind of think that's your job. I'm going to take that job on myself now. But that is what it is. We have to make space in horrible things for our own horrible things that that we're concerned about, because it's going to be horrible out there.
Well, and I think, one of the things...
We're going to win, by the way. I just want to say, it's going to be tough, but they're not going to...
One of the things that I hope comes across in the book is that the fights that these women are in are not necessarily unique to the HIV community.
Right.
They're about health care. They're about access to health care, affordability of health care, housing, the ability to practice your religion. You know, there were 2 women in there who were kicked out of their faith communities
I have heard that.
because they
yes.
were HIV positive. And this, you know, it's,
By the way, I will go to my grave having the secret of so many people who told me that they have HIV, but they've told virtually no one else.
yeah.
And I will never, ever, ever, you know, say a word about it. But there are many, 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 many more people than people have any idea that are living with HIV. Not just me and Chelsea, but in small towns in rural America,
Yes.
it is prevalent, to this day prevalent and stigmatized. So I loved having you. I'm going to do, can I just plug your book, please? Plug the book. And it's out in paperback, so it's perfect.
It's in paperback and ebook, wherever you like to get your books.
So, Unstoppable. Gee, I wonder where you came up with that. Straight women on the AIDS front lines. Thank you. Thank you for writing the book. Thank you for making the time to come and be here. It's been a great joy. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. I mean, I think this has been an inspiring episode. I hope you feel the same way. And I want to thank everyone here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network for the amazing work they do. They make me look good. They make a lot of people look good. They make voices heard that don't ordinarily get heard. So thank you, MNN. Okay, listen, you know, the reality is that we're going to have to keep resisting, fighting against what's happening in our country, and this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But it's one that has a little bit of joy in it too, because we got to have some joy. That's what we're good at. We're good at joy too. And it's our joy. And by the way, we're going to demand respect from the bad people, and we're going to get justice for everyone, no matter who you are. And by the way, you know, I feel like kind of that's the way it is, you know, to be a queer, or I think it's the experience of a trans person, or a black person, or a Latinx, or an indigenous person, or anyone. You know, resistance, it's just a way of life. It's how we live. But what we can do is we can recruit people to fight a little bit harder, and by doing that, I think that you'll feel the hope that we're going to win this thing. So, viva la resistance! I don't know, I took Spanish. I hope you'll do your part, keep fighting, stay hopeful, keep recruiting, have some fun, and we'll see you again. This has been Recruiters, and I really am grateful that you tuned in. And I'll see you out on the streets or at all the best events that are fighting against evil. Thanks.